All right, so I've been on quarantine now for getting close to 5 weeks. I'm working from home, so no harm, no foul, but been in the house for too long. And as many of you know, I converted to Mac probably 5 years ago. So I've got Macs everywhere. I have an iMac, i9 iMac upstairs. My wife has one. A couple of MacBooks, an Air and a Pro, and iPads and all that good stuff. I went away from PCs. I thought the Mac was easier and better for the kind of work that I was doing. Having said that, I spent last weekend in the Linus loop. If you're not familiar with Linus Tech tips, just Google the guy or search him on YouTube. And so you get in there and you start watching him build computers, and him and his team, they're building computers. And I start getting all jazzed up about maybe I should build a computer, because I used to do this quite a bit. And I haven't built one probably in 7 or 8 years. So it's been a while. Technology's changed a little bit, but it looks like the process is all the same. So at the end of a weekend of Linus, I went to Amazon and started buying stuff that I probably don't need. And then, before I spent too much money, I went and cleaned out my junk closet, which I have. This is a 1 terabyte Seagate drive that came out of my wife's iMac. I put an SSD in there. And this is the 1 terabyte Fusion drive that came out of my iMac, which I put an SSD in there as well. The things I bought, well, one more thing. Well, I guess that's it. I did go out and buy myself a M.2 drive, 512 gigabytes, $69, I think. I had a big debate and a lot of consternation about whether I should get an Intel versus a Ryzen, if I got, which one to get, the i9, i7, the Ryzen 5, 7, 9, what have you. I'm building this primarily for gaming. I'm not chasing frame rate, so I don't need to be like 1,000 frames a second or anything like that. But decent performance when I'm trying to get myself back in the game, since I'm home all day. So I settled on the Ryzen 7 3700X. It seemed like a pretty good price point for performance. I initially bought a Ryzen 9, has 12 cores in it and super sweet CPU, but at about 110 bucks more than this one. And after I watching Linus and some of the benchmarking, not much more performance for gaming. For real work, the Ryzen 9 is probably a better deal, but for what I want to do, the Ryzen 7 3700X seems to hit the sweet spot. So that's what I have here. I went ahead and bought myself some RGB RAM. This is Corsair, 16 gigs of DDR4. Areas where you really don't want to skimp or don't want to take chances, and I did. I took a chance. Something called if I can say this right, Game DS Kratos, whatever, power supply. So basically, power supply is really, really important, and so you don't want to skimp on that. I read a review. It was a decent review. It feels about right, so you can tell you got a cheap power supply. If you pick it up and it weighs nothing, you got a problem. This one has a little bit of girth to it, so it feels good. It doesn't have the detachable cables that I would like, but for cable management. But we'll get into that later. But anyway, we're going to try this thing out. If it doesn't work, or if it fails for whatever reason, we can always send it back. It's 750 watts. It's a bronze edition, so it should be good power. And it should be plenty of power for what I want to do. So hopefully it works. And hopefully it works well and supplies all the power. I'm not doing anything crazy, so it shouldn't be too bad. I don't plan to overclock or anything like that. The other thing, speaking of that, not overclock. So these Ryzens come with a fan assembly that I'm going to use. If I were going to overclock, I'd probably upgrade that, but since I'm not, I'm going to go with the stock fan, so that should be fine. I got a video card. I have an eGPU upstairs on my iMac that has a Radeon RX 580 on it. Take this glasses off. And so I went on eBay and I found a Vega 64 card. I ended up getting the card for a pretty good deal, I think. I don't know what these things gotta cost. I think they should cost more than what I paid for this one. But anyway, it is an MSI. I think it's an MSI. I got a book upstairs. But anyway, it's a Radeon Vega 64. I got it for 250 bucks. So I think a pretty good deal. Actually, it was 248 to be exact. But anyway, so this is going to power my graphics. When I get done and doing some benchmarks, I'll probably use the internal graphics that are on this board. I'll probably take my RX 580 out and do a set of graphics with those, a set of benchmarks with those, and also do the Vega 64 and see what's what. This may go in my iMac. We'll see. Where I didn't skimp is I got an MSI X57 gaming Edge motherboard. It has built-in Wi-Fi, of course. It has Vega graphics on it. I don't know how good they are. We'll see. So this should be a pretty solid choice from a standpoint of a motherboard. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to try to put this together. Oh, I forgot the case. We'll get to that. I'm going to try to put this together tonight, at least get it to a working state, and then assuming that's successful, I will then run some benchmarks tomorrow and put all that stuff together for you guys at the end of the video. So anyway, so that's that. The case will probably go last. It's a I bought this also on Amazon. This is an NZXT. I don't know what the heck they call it. H510 says right there, big letters, H510. So anyway, so we'll deal with that when we get to it, but we're not there yet. But anyway, so that case is going to be sitting here while we do some other things here. Okay, so first things first. Let's do a little bit of unboxing. I'm going to start with the motherboard. So I'm opening it up, and I already opened it up actually. I bought some G-Skill RAM here that I thought I was going to use. I still might. I'm going to try the VGA, the RGB RAM first, and I'll send these back if I like those. If I don't, I'll put those on there the same. These cost about 20 bucks less minus the RGB, so we'll see how that goes. Motherboard is packed very nicely. It has manuals, all the stuff you would expect to be in the box, but this is the most important thing for right now. And the cables, we'll get to that when we get to it. What else we got going on here? Antennas for the Wi-Fi. And I think these are RGB cables, but we'll get to that at the right time. Right now, let's take the board out. Take a quick peek here at it. I'll use my box as my kind of my case to work on the board. Let's see what we got going on. Ooh, looks good. Has that new silicone smell. Cool. Let me pause that. All right, so turn this thing off. CPU, Ryzen. It's an AM4 socket. It has 8 cores, 16 threads. Pretty good performance. Not top end, not top of the line performance, but really good performance. We'll see here when we get to the benchmarks. But anyway. Comes the fan assembly right there. Pretty nice, pretty healthy fan, looks like. Like it. I'll turn that up. Oops, sorry. Turn that upside down on that plastic, keep it there. And there's no CPU. Put up with that. All right, well that's interesting. Duh. CPU. And it has some connectors here. I'm not quite sure what they are. We'll get to that. We'll figure that out. Anyway, there's your CPU. Before I forget, tools. Need tools. Gotta have tools to do this, right? Whoa. That's just paper. Toolkit from iFixit. I think I paid 25 bucks for this. Has my little screwdriver here. Has everything I'm going to need. Little bits to do some of the screwing in that's going to have to happen here. Yeah. So got this. Another shout out to Linus. I'll quit doing that, I promise. But just so you know, your advertising is working. I saw this on your advertising. I ordered the kit, and here it is. So we'll use that. The other thing I need is a place to hold all the screws. So where I'm going to put the screws for a tray is fitting inside of here. So when the time comes, that's where my screws will be. The stuff that hit the floor is just kind of marketing material for the kit, so we don't care about that. I'll throw that in there for now. Get that out of the way. Cool as a jewel. Awesome. So here's a pretty good close-up of the board. Like I said, MSI Gaming Edge. Looks pretty cool. Looks like they got the back plate already on there. It's kind of attached to it, which is kind of interesting. I guess we won't be forgetting that. Yeah. So there you go. So the CPU socket there, RAM sockets there, power to the board, power to the CPU, fan for the chipset, video card, M.2 connector here. There's probably one under here. My guess is there's an M.2 connector under here, so we'll go with this one, I think. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Cool. All right, so there is our CPU right there. And you can get a big shot of it. There you go, Ryzen 737X, 3700X. Let me drop this down for a second. So there's the back of the CPU. You want to be extremely careful with this thing because this represents about a third of the budget for the entire unit. If you look at the CPU there, you see that little, on the bottom right corner there, you see that little triangle down there. That's kind of your guide to where this thing is going to sit on the CPU, I mean on the motherboard. So, but before we get to that, what we need to do is we need to release the motherboard tray for the CPU. Basically, you push down and pull out and lift that joker up, and that basically frees the tray. And you're looking for a comparable triangle, which appears to be right here, which appears to be right there. And you want to just map those two together, right? So, so this triangle that's on the CPU should fit the same place where the triangle is on the actual motherboard. It's already trying to get in there. And don't force this, because if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. And like I said, you don't want to mess that up. That does not seem to fit. So I did something wrong there. Let me look at this again. Oh, stupid. Okay. The triangle, you'll see it right here. The triangle that I need to map this to is right here. You can see that little thing right there where my finger is. This little golden triangle from the CPU should be orientated in that way. And once you do that, the CPU should fit right down CPU should fit right down into the socket as it does. And once it does that, all you need to do is lock it. Just lock it into place with this thing, and you pull this out and make sure it's locked in. It's all seated in there right, real nice. Very good, cool. All right. Hugely important thing here, guys. I've got with me some thermal paste. I think it's Arctic Silver. It is. It's Arctic Silver. It's been in my junk drawer forever. So you normally put a little dollop of Arctic Silver on here and apply your fan. But in this case, this fan has thermal pad already on it. So it's an either or
thing, guys. So it's not both. So if I wasn't going to use this, I'd have to clean this off and get it completely where it's copper across, then put some silver on. But I'm not going to do that because it's already applied for me and it looks perfect. So there's no reason for me to put arctic paste on there. So I'm not going to do that. What I do need to do, however, is remove these 4 screws, because these are the screws that are going to screw the CPU onto the fan onto the CPU. So pause. It appears that I was mistaken. So if you look here on these little plastic brackets, you can see I already had set the CPU down there. These little notches right here, and right here are where the CPU latches are going to catch. So I'm going to place those on and then I'll come back to you. So hang on one second. Cool. So I've got these latches connected. You can see right here, where's my finger? Right there. And then on the other side as well. And it's not locked down, even though it's in place. You can see it moves pretty freely. Once you get the motherboard on there and you get it aligned here, you have the notches connected. All you got to do is take this lever here, flip it all the way over to here to lock the motherboard into place. I got to put this down to do that. So let me do that. That's the motherboard locked into place. Pretty tight right there. Perfect. Pick up the whole board. Awesome. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the power for the fan, and I'm going to find the fan connector, which is normally on the other side of the board. And let me find it over here. It's probably right there. Yep, right there it says CPU. Oh, where's my finger? Right there. So this guy is going to come around here, and it's going to go right on there. Shows a better way to get it over there. I guess that's the only way I'm going to get it there. I don't know why they did it like that, but they did. It's no problem, however. So align the pins up, snap it in, there you go. So there's that. All right, so now you can see our unit with the CPU on it, fully attached. Okay, quick note before we continue, boys and girls. Once you get the CPU on, leave it on, and never ever apply power to your CPU without this fan or without some kind of cooling in place. As I mentioned before, the CPU is the most expensive piece of your unit generally, and they're very sensitive to heat. And so if you power this thing on without a fan, you are asking for trouble. And yes, Smooth, I am talking to you. Feel me? All right, for our next trick, let's put our memory in next. So something to note as you're putting your memory in, you want to use 2 banks. These are dual channel memory banks here, so dual meaning 2, obviously. So to get the maximum performance out of your memory, you want to fill up both of those banks. This board is a little bit interesting because the manual that came with it, and this actually did resort to the manual, believe it or not. I normally wait till I can't figure something out before I go to the manual, but I did this because I couldn't figure out the RAM. And it's really light on detail with respect to where these where the chips ought to go. So, having said that, resort to the old Mark I eyeball. And because I'm an old man, my Mark I eyeball is not so great, but I do have, cha-ching, my magnifying glass. So, I'm looking, and I'm looking. That's interesting. And, okay, there it is. So they don't make it easy. So there's a little legend here where the memory banks are that tells you which ones go where. So it essentially is telling me that these I'm going to call them 1 and 3 for lack of a better way, but like this first bank and this third bank are the ones that I need to populate first. So let me take my memory out of here and let's get her done, as they say. This ought to be pretty cool. I like this. This is the it's the Vengeance Pro from Corsair. Ooh, sounds good. Into it, and you can see the little notch right there in the middle of the dim stick, and then also there's a notch right there on the bank, and those two line up. And I guess because this one doesn't move, you're going to go put this side in first, which would be to my right. Can make sure it's in the slot, which it is not. All right, so kind of in the slot, you can see there where the notch lines up with the little thing there. And I'm going to punch that down. And I'm going to push this one down. Feels like it's already in there. I didn't hear it snap. Normally you can hear these snap close, and that really didn't snap, but it looks like it's locked in there. And I don't want to put too much pressure on it, but I'm going to pull it out here just to make sure that I got it in there. That did snap a little bit. Make sure that's in on that side. Ah, there we go. You heard that snap. And there we go. That's what I'm looking for, that little snap there. So there you go. So that's one bank that's seated, and we'll do the other bank here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so my next trick, after getting the RAM in, you can see the RAM is in place. Put the board up for you. RAM is in, CPU's on. Next, we're going to put on, I think we should put on the 512 gigabyte M.2 memory module. So let's do that. I'm going to have to actually break out my toolkit now because I have to take, I believe, I have to remove this heatsink right here because I believe that the socket's right underneath this heatsink. So let's take that off real quick. All right, YouTube, good morning again. Back, a couple hours of sleep, thinking about this thing a little bit. And so what I'm going to do now is a couple things. First off, I did go online and find the manual for this thing, and it's actually a pretty comprehensive manual. Not this, so it kind of explains all this stuff to me just in case I need it, which I probably will. I've also, for some reason, the orientation of the RAM, the DIMM slots here is different than what's in this thing here. So I changed them around. So the second one in is the first DIMM slot that should be filled in the fourth one. So 2 and 4 versus 1 and 3. So I changed those around. I think that's it. I think the first thing we're going to do now is I'm going to put this aside and I'm going to pull the case up and let's see what's going on with the case. Let me move my MacBook out of the way. Let me move this guy out of the way. Pick it up by the CPU because it's connected pretty strong there. But real quick, let me flip this thing around for you. So it's got some good cable management stuff going on here. So it's kind of already pre-wired a little bit. Has all your cables here. Power supply is going to sit back here. It looks like there's enough clearance under here that if I put the power supply facing down, air can suck up through and out the back. I'm not sure what these trays. Oh, you know what? These trays here are for. That's going to work out well, I think. These trays are for your hard drives. Oh, right there. I like that. I like that a lot. And so that's going to work out pretty well. And yeah, so there you go. So first thing. Also, as you look in here, you'll see the offsets there are where you're going to set the motherboard, which is what I will do. So actually, I'm looking in the wrong place. Back here, and one here. Anyway, there's 9 of them, and I have 9 on my board, so that should work out just right. Again, I would have preferred to actually power the board up before I stuck it in the case, but since I don't have a power supply, we're going to do it this way. So hope it goes well. All right, so there's my motherboard right there, and I pick up the board by the CPU because it's the most well attached, and so there you go. And normally you'd have to put in the make sure you had the the back plate attached before you did this, but this one never came off. So when I say the back plate, I'm talking about this thing right here. This guy right here. All right, so let me stick this in here and I'll be right back.
Gentlemen, so I am back from my visit to Best Buy and I went ahead and got myself a real power supply. This is a Corsair CX750M. It is rated 80 bronze, 750 watt power supply. I went ahead and got the modular unit because I'm gonna open it up here. I don't want to have all those cables hanging out of the back. As you can tell, I have been moved from my kitchen to my office. In this family, we have this unique tradition called breakfast. So my wife basically pushed me out of the kitchen, which totally makes sense. And let's take a quick peek at the power supply. So I talked about the weight before in the other one. This one's about twice as heavy, and not that weight matters, but it kind of matters. I mean, just kind of a good indicator of quality of the build. And this one is literally twice as heavy as the whatever that thing was called, Game DS thing. So yeah, pretty nice. It does have braided cabling, which is awesome. And the cables that are connected to this are for, I believe this is for the power to the CPU and power to the motherboard. And then everything else, you can see it. Everything else is kind of modular there. So I won't need all those cables, so that'll help me with cleaning up the cable. So what I'm gonna do, guys, is I'm gonna put this into the box and do a little bit of cable management, and then we'll power this joker up and see, hopefully we'll power it up. Hopefully I did everything right, and we'll power it up and we can do some, get the CMOS updated and do some other things here. So stand by. All right, making videos off my phone, crazy. All right, so got the power supply in and did a little bit of cable management. I'll show you in a second. I did turn the power supply on just to make sure it turns on, which it does. So I'm not surprised by that, so that's great. Let me just show you real quick the back panel, the back here. Not the best cable management job you'll ever see, but probably not the worst. Again, I've done what I said not to do, which is I put everything in here without actually posting it to make sure that it posts and all that stuff. We'll see that in a second. And hopefully I don't have to undo all of this, but I feel pretty confident in what I have in there. That's the back panel of the case will go here, so you won't see any of this stuff here. Obviously the 2.5 inch hard drive is there, and there's a cage on the back side of that has a 3.5 hard drive in it, so there's 2 terabytes of drive there. So anyway, there you go. That's the back. Everything's connected. I didn't put the video card in yet. Hang on one second. All right, so there you go. That's our Vega 64 eBay special Radeon Vega 64. It occupies 2 slots, as you can see there. Excuse me. So I'm going to take 2 slots off. It's gonna occupy that main riser slot right there, and I'll put this down. I'll have to take off these 2 pieces right here, slide those out, drop the card in, reconnect them, attach the power and the monitor, and we'll go from there. Let me calm down. What's going on over here? That wasn't supposed to happen. Okay, so it's been about a week, and I've gone ahead and installed all the drivers, got Windows installed and activated. A couple things I had to do, I didn't have to do, but I did. One is I went ahead and put a 140 millimeter fan in the front, excuse me, sucking air into the body, into the chassis, over the video card and out the back. The Radeon Vega 64 gets pretty hot. Also, as you can see right here, I went ahead and bought myself a Wi-Fi adapter. So the one thing about this this motherboard, this MSI board, is that the onboard Wi-Fi is pretty crappy. So I was probably getting about 20 to 25 megabits per second of throughput with that card, which is okay for email and maybe some light YouTube stuff, but kind of sucks for games. So I went ahead and bought this, if I can pronounce this right, EDUP, I don't know, EDUP adapter. and those megabits per second went from about 20 to 25 to about 90 to 95, which is right kind of in the sweet spot where I need to be for gaming. Anyway, I'm very pleased with the build. A couple of things, I just want to make a note of this mouse here. So this is a Razer Lance head wireless mouse, and I don't get excited about mouses too much, but this is really a nice mouse. It's actually, I might buy another one of these for my Mac. I don't know if it will work with my Mac, but in any event, it's an RGB mouse. It's not doing its RGB thing right now. Programmable. It's not too heavy, but not too light, like cheapy feeling. Like I have this other thing. It's a Kingston mouse, which is good enough for work. It's got a cheapy feeling. This feels a little more beefy and conforms to the hand perfectly. It has, you know, programmable buttons and all that for games. I don't know that I'll game with the mouse, but I have it. Anyway, happy with the build. I'm gonna run a couple of benchmarks here and let you guys see what's going on. I don't think, you know, it's not a super high speed, you know, SLI machine, but it's certainly adequate for what I need to do. Probably more than adequate for what I need to do.
Estaré aquí toda la noche.
¡Hey! ¡Cuidado, niños!